All right, everybody, we got a couple more still getting pizza, but we'll go ahead and get this thing rolling so y'all can get back to your studies. I'm Dave Matthews. I'm your host today. So glad everybody could come. You're at RevTech Ventures World Headquarters, actually our only office, here in downtown Dallas. Our claim to fame is we're right next door to Centro College. So welcome, everybody. We're a venture capital fund. We invest in startups that are building great ideas at the intersection of technology and retail. So things that help you shop and dine easier and better. So that's RevTech. So we partnered up with Centro a couple months ago with your president, Mr. Bradford Williams, and we said we wanted to help support your entrepreneurial efforts at the college. And lo and behold, you have a brand new entrepreneur club run by Martin Caballero here and his associate Yareth. So and Yareth there in the back. So Martin, tell us a bit about this new entrepreneurship club.
Yeah, appreciate for the introduction, David. So basically this club started because I realized that a lot of students want to start their own business or haven't really gave it a thought, and I want to give them the opportunity to see what it's like and bring speakers like Sierra Pena, who has a lot of experience and went through a lot, and maybe pick her brain and see if these students get inspiration to start their own business and just figure out if that's really what they want to do. And I think there's not really too many opportunities that we get to talk to CEOs or be, in these venture cap. Like, I didn't know what a venture capital company was, so after meeting up with David, I got more familiar. And myself, I've been really I've been thinking about starting my own business, and hopefully you guys are, starting to warm up to that idea and give actual, good content and get you guys connected to these big people. So yeah, I appreciate everyone coming through, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Martin. Great job pulling a group together here today. I told Martin when I met him, I hope it's okay to share this story. I said, well, so what do you do entrepreneurial? He said, I built a website for my dad for his landscaping business. I said, well, that's a great start, because one of RevTech's best investments, we met a guy who built a website for his dad, and his dad sold uniforms and stuff to school teams. And after this guy built the website for his dad, he said, you know what? There's a lot of people out there selling uniforms to school teams. Maybe I'll build websites for them too. And this guy, we invested a tiny amount of money at the beginning of his company. And lo and behold, he scaled that up to where he's serving over 200,000 teams today. It's incredible. It's called Order My Gear, and it's based right here in downtown Dallas. But Kent was able to scale up that company and sell it for nearly $70 million 6 years later. So, Martin, look, it can happen, There's more folks like your dad out there. Go build 200,000 websites. But anyway, that gives you a little color on what RevTech is and does with young entrepreneurs. And today, we're lucky we've got a young entrepreneur right here with me today, Sierra Pena, who is actually RevTech's newest investment. And Sierra, tell everybody how we met, and because I'm trying to remember. I think we met through a common acquaintance, right?
Yeah, I think. Testing. Do you hear me? Is it
I think
working?
you just have to talk loud. Is that working?
Is it working, you guys? Hello.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
okay,
it's working.
Cool. So we met actually through a mutual friend during my time at Techstars, which we'll get into here in a moment. I flew from Austin to Dallas pretty much to pitch David. One thing led to another, and here we are.
Here we are. She is off to the races, folks. So I want to go back, get your backstory a bit, because your backstory is very interesting. So you were raised in Puerto Rico and at some point moved to Dominican Republic, right? Tell us about kind of your growing up, and did you have any inklings that you'd be an entrepreneur someday when you were growing up?
Yeah. Okay, so I was born in Chicago. I'm Cuban American. We moved to Puerto Rico early in my childhood. I was probably around 3-4 years old. And frankly, my parents moved to Puerto Rico because this is what my mom says, they were just broke. And there was a work incentive for them to move there. So grew up in Puerto Rico. I'm not sure if any of y'all have been there at all, but it's a beautiful island, but like 42% of the population is in poverty. So I didn't grow up poor or anything, but I grew up, middle class. So I grew up in a very hardworking family, and it was just really interesting growing up there, being exposed to that level of poverty so early on, and just to I guess create more of a picture for you. I was in 3 shootouts by the time I was 11 years old, and most of those shootouts were because of gang violence. And yeah, a lot of my friends were living in caseríos, which are considered like government housing in Puerto Rico. But I never actually thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, though there were inklings of, I guess there were early signs.
Would you have a lemonade stand or anything along
the way?
Okay,
I did. Okay, so this is a funny story. So I had a lemonade stand.
You did? Okay.
I did, actually. So this is side story. I had a lemonade stand when I was I think I must have been 10 years old. And I figured out a way to actually generate more profits, I guess. So as opposed to actually charging customers $1 per cup, it was free lemonade, and I just had a tips jar, and I would be getting $20, $30, $50 in tips every time, and that was a way for me to just, I guess that is a little bit of an early entrepreneur
Very
start.
entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I think they call that a freemium model.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I guess as a kid, I was just always hyper competitive. I was a little hustler, having my lemonade stands. I always had to be number 1 in school. It was actually probably not very healthy looking back at it, but I always had to be the last one in the pacer test. I don't know if y'all remember that, running back and I was literally always the last when I had to be first place. I had to be first place in all of the hula hoop competitions, running, everything I had to win. So I'd say that was my earliest kind of symptoms of entrepreneurship.
I had a hunch of that about you. I didn't really screen Sierra on her childhood experience when we met, but I had a hunch that you're wired to win.
Yeah.
And that you will do what it takes to win, which we love in entrepreneurs because it's tough building something. It's the whole world's against you and you have to will your idea into existence. But you've got interesting winning string. What is this about you were traveling to South America and became some kind of bowling champion?
Yeah, so I had really weird hobbies growing up, and when I'm really into something, I'm just full blown into it. So I got really into bowling when I was 11 years old, and literally was obsessed with it. Every single day after school, I'd walk to the bowling alley. I had my own bowling ball, my little bowling case that I used to walk around with. I was so proud of that case. I remember bringing it to school and just showing off my bowling ball and everything. But it was one of those things where I wasn't actually very good at first, but I did it for years, and I won a lot of tournaments, except I had one arch nemesis. Her name is Maria Chevres, and literally every single tournament she would beat me until when it actually counted. So I mean,
she choked.
Yeah, exactly. So I qualified for bowling champion of South America. We traveled to Costa Rica, and I beat everybody except I mean, I did win at the end, but I remember it being like the final like 6 frames. It was me against Maria Chavez, like my super arch nemesis, from Puerto Rico too, and she lost, and I beat her. So that was probably one of the highest points in my life, I'd say.
All right, but there's more, and thankfully the Entrepreneurship Club put together this great cheat sheet so I can really stay on track with you today. Isn't this fabulous? One pager on Sierra.
Yeah.
I want to know because you have some retail experience early on. You were a cashier at McDonald's in 2009. I want to know what from that experience helped you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so my first job ever was at McDonald's. I was fry girl. So I would get there at like 5 a.m. I was 16. Would get to the restaurant at 5 a.m., make French fries for like 8 hours a day. And I remember being so happy after like 6 months where they promoted me to cash register. It was like a great moment in life. But I guess what I learned honestly is to hustle. And I've always had that mentality, just hustle, hustle, hustle. I don't know what the saying is, like, what is it? Mind of a champion, hustle like an underdog, something like that. And that's always been true for me. I've always felt kind of like an underdog, but have I guess hustled and transcended above that in many ways.
Yeah, well, just to survey the crowd, how many of y'all have had experience working in restaurant and retail of any kind? Wow, most of the room. Well, this is awesome. I worked in restaurant and retail as a kid. I mean, pizza joint, steakhouse, service merchandise retail, delivered pianos for a time. I love my restaurant and retail experience as a teenager and young adult because I think it really gives you customer service skills. You have to hustle and you have to make the customer happy. So I love seeing people that have that restaurant retail experience because you've learned one of the key things about being an entrepreneur is the purpose of a business isn't to make money, it's to serve a customer, to fill a customer's need and make them satisfied with that service. So as my kids could tell you, I made all them go work at least some stretch in a restaurant or retail job so that they could get some of that customer service experience. So I think that's awesome with you. Was that before college?
Yes, and throughout college too.
And through.
I've always worked.
All right. Anything entrepreneurial in your college years, or what kind of in your college years connects the dot between your path in childhood to where you are now?
Well, what I will say is, and you don't know this actually, but I used to work farmers markets in college. My dad, when he retired, opened up a bakery, and every Sunday we would be at the farmers market selling bread, and it's kind of, I guess, where the idea of Micromarkets came from, actually, which was one of my first businesses. But yeah, like I'd say that's probably what started everything, was these markets. And I don't know how much you guys know about Micromarkets, but basically it's like an outdoor marketplace, kind of like a farmer's market, craft market, where I had the opportunity of working with over 1,000 independent brands in Austin. These are like incredible makers, and pretty much that's where my journey started, actually, with Shelfleet.
So the dots totally connect all along the way. Well, what I loved about Sierra's idea when I was introduced to her, and we work in tech around the retail experience, and it used to be when you wanted to start a new retail company, you would like get the money together to open a store. So you would have to like raise some kind of money from friends, family, bank, whatever, to open a physical store. Then you'd have to hire people to staff the store. Then you'd have to buy merchandise to put on the shelves of the store. But then the internet came along and this all shifted to where all the stores started being invented online as online stores. Because, I mean, how easy is it to create a new brand or open a new store online versus a physical storefront. It's way easier, right? But now fast forward to today, the internet's been around for 25 years now, and by today, there's zillions of online consumer brands. I mean, for any category you can think of, there's like 1,000 brands, right? And so we've been, at RevTech, we've been puzzling about, at some point, these online brands have to find their way into physical retail stores, because whatever you think, folks, over 80% of retail, maybe closer to 85%, still happens in physical stores, not online. Amazon didn't want you to hear this, but it's true. And so here's Sierra. And so your experience, your journey is about all these kind of micro brands creating storefronts.
Yeah, so how all of this started actually was when I was hosting these markets for, I guess, the last 2 years. One problem that kept coming up over and over again was the fact that my vendors wanted to get their product into retail stores, but they just didn't really know how. They didn't have the knowledge. So I was working my 9 to 5 at a creative agency. I was running the sales team. I was running these markets. And then I decided to take on this other problem. And what I started doing was I created a consignment program. So I guess arguably, Shelfleet at its early infancy was actually a consignment program for my vendors. So I created a consignment program where I would connect my vendors to local retail shops in Austin, and would just take a small connection fee as my own fee. One thing led to another, and something interesting started happening. So we started getting an influx number of signups on the brand side. And then looking back at it, about a third of those signups were actually digitally native brands. These are brands that were born online and only sell online. One of our earliest customers, called Potion, I would say is our earliest digitally native brand customer. They were based in California, and they were interested in working with us because they wanted to create a physical presence in Austin. They saw through their online analytics that the majority of their orders were actually coming from Austin, so they wanted to partner with us to create that kind of physical presence for their audience there. I guess at that point, I knew that this was a much larger problem than I had originally thought it was. I reached out to my longtime mentor, Colette, who I've known for the last 7 years, and she actually used to be my boss at one point, and now she's our co-founder. So
It's a great story. Find a mentor, they might just become your co-founder in your startup. You had a step before this Micromarkets step, which was you worked for Uber, right? Didn't you help launch Uber Eats in the Austin market? And how is that like a connecting point in your pathway to what you're doing now?
yeah, I would say even before that, I have always worked in smaller companies and startups. So even before Uber Eats, I had an internship at a social media agency in Ireland. So I moved to Ireland randomly after college for whatever reason, and I was hustling there, man. I had about 3 jobs. I was a nanny. I was working at a restaurant, and then I decided to take on this internship where basically I was getting paid $100 a week. I wasn't getting paid at all, but I really saw value in the experience. So I worked my way up from being a part-time intern to over the last over 2 years, and left the job being a senior sales and marketing executive. So this was really, I would say, pivot, this job, my first job ever, was the pivoting point in my life. This is where I met my co-founder, and this is where I learned all of my critical skills that I would take forward with me in my, other experiences. But yeah, I'd say that's probably where it started. And then after that, I didn't tell you this actually, but I worked at another startup when I moved back to Austin called The House, where basically it was kind of like a where's the coolest happy hour app, and spoke to like over 200, I was a city launcher there, spoke to over 200 bars and restaurants in Austin before actually starting at Uber Eats. And, like working in the service-based business, kind of small-based business industry is super, it's challenging. Again, you need to bring that hustle mentality, and that's exactly what I did. So during my time at Uber Eats, I helped them launch 11 cities, mainly here in Texas, but also across the Midwest. Yeah.
So how does launching an Uber Eats kind of connect the dots for you into connecting online brands with physical stores? Because there's some parallel there.
Yeah, I would say just in terms of like the type of customer that we're targeting now at Shelfleet on the retailer side is very similar in terms of customer behavior. So when we think about like city launch, our city launch for Shelfleet, we're actually going to be taking a pretty similar approach to how we did it at Uber Eats.
Oh, that's good learning.
Yeah.
So what you learned as an employee getting paid, you're translating that learning and helping you launch Shelfleet in your official market launch in Austin. That's brilliant. So how did you get into Techstars? Because Techstars, is anybody familiar with Techstars? Show of hands. Only a couple. In venture capital, starting about 15 years ago, these things called accelerator programs started happening. That's actually how RevTech started. But Techstars was one of the big ones. You had Y Combinator in San Francisco, which is like the home of venture capital. And then you had Techstars that kind of took the Y Combinator model to lots of other cities, including Austin. And these accelerator programs, they help a startup in their infancy with like a 12-week boot camp program. They give a little cash and a lot of kind of mentor support, right? And the really good ones like Techstars have tons of applicants. So probably Techstars Austin got 500 applicants to drill down to 10 participants. And Sierra was one of those 10. So how did you get in, other than we know you're ultra competitive?
Yeah. This is actually a good story. The joke is I harassed my way into Techstars, and I basically, we didn't actually even apply to Techstars until after we got in. That's the truth. So I found Amos's email. Amos is the MD, managing director at Techstars. I somehow found his email. I sent him a quick email, gave him kind of like wrote him a 30-second pitch, sent him my deck, and keep in mind this was like pre-product, pre-revenue, and I think we were about 2 months into actually Shelfleet being a thing. So in fact, I think we were kind of still a consignment program at that point. But Amos got my email and appreciated it. He forwarded me on to his associate, which isn't really a good sign, but spoke to his associate. His associate pretty much told us that we were too early. I was like, okay, well, no.
That's disheartening. I mean, they invest in the earliest of early.
Yeah.
So what kind of answer is it to say you're too early?
I don't know what they were looking for, but associate told us no. And I just couldn't accept that as an answer because I knew what we were building was very special. So I email Amos again and basically tell him, hey, look, like, this is the perfect timing. Like, this is what's going on in the market. Everything is pointing toward omni-channel, and we need to make this happen now. Like, I can't take no for an answer. And he was like, okay, fine, like, let's hop on a call. Like, he probably just wanted to shut me up. So we hopped on the call. We ended up really vibing, and he loved the idea. He loved me. and was like, okay, look, I still think you're too early, but let's just go through the application process and see what happens. So he forwards me on to the program manager. We go through the whole interview. And after all of that, we got a rejection letter saying that we were too early. And that was fine. I was at the gym when I got the letter, and I was so sure we were gonna get in. And I remember actually, and I don't really take these things personally usually, but I actually remember having to leave the gym because I was so upset that we didn't get in. Okay, so we were rejected. A lot of my connections anyway were at YC, so Y Combinator, the competitor accelerator. So we were actually going through the application process with Y Combinator at the time, and got on to got past the first round with Y Combinator, and then ultimately got rejected by them as well. But what I did after that actually was I went back to Amos and I told him, hey, just so you know, we just went through the Y Combinator application process, gave him the whole update on Shelfleet and where we were at with the company, and also told him we were rejected by YC as well. I got an email probably 10 minutes after I sent my email, and he was like, hey, can we hop on the phone? And this was mid-December last year. And I was like, yeah, what's up? Let's hop on a phone, on a phone call. And he calls me, actually we get on a Zoom, and he offers me a position, a spot on Techstars for that winter. And he was like, you know what, out of all of the applicants, what I appreciate about you is you kept following up. You just wouldn't take no for an answer, and those are qualities that really every entrepreneur needs on their journey, because oftentimes, actually more often than not, you're gonna get a no. That's just how it is.
That is a great story. I hope you all take that to heart. I mean, the way she got through this was persistence. She just kept at it. And you knew who the decision maker was. You kept going straight to the decision maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's an awesome story, because now here you are with your funded startup, and you're just about to have your official market launch next month, right? Can you describe a little bit of what that looks like?
So it's a soft launch. Basically, over the last, I'd say, 10 months, we were testing Shelfleet manually, meaning we didn't actually have a technical product. So basically, I was not only the CEO, I was the warehouse delivery driver, going into the stores, measuring out the shelf space, connecting the brand to the retailer. It's a whole thing. So our technical product will basically automate most of the stuff that I've been doing manually for the last 10, 11 months. So it's not going to be anything crazy. We're not going to have a launch party or anything, but we are excited to be testing this product. And I don't know, I didn't actually introduce Shelfleet and what we actually do, but basically, I guess the easiest way to think about it is Airbnb for retail shelf space. So we're connecting digitally native brands to retailers through our shelf rental platform, really as a way to lower customer acquisition costs, create meaningful experiences, and improve overall customer satisfaction and choice. I don't know why I didn't say that at the beginning.
Well, you had to build your story up to the punchline. So, well, it's really cool. Clearly, you have to crawl before you walk, and you have to walk before you run. So you're somewhere between crawling and walking now then,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe not so much walking yet, but we're getting there.
Well, cool. Well, what would you convey to a room full of students? I think everybody that's interested in this club, I know Martin and Yarth, their tagline has been, want to be your own boss. So I think everybody here has some inkling that they might want to be their own boss out there. So what kind of helpful experience or guidance could you give this group?
I would say, firstly, it's really hard to be your own boss. Like, it sounds really cool, but it's extremely difficult. But really just to like experiment with everything. Like any idea that comes to mind, just do it. Like, who cares? I did that a number of times, even before Shelfleet, with Micromarkets, with a number of other like ideas. I just didn't really care. I just did it. So I would say experiment as much as you can, but also, you know, this sounds kind of cheesy, but like, don't give up either. Like I said before, you're gonna get no a lot. Like probably 99% of the time, it's gonna be a no. But always push for a yes. And yeah, just be tenacious. There's a quote that I read basically every day. It's in my office. It's I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I'm a fucking animal, and I'll eat you if I have to. And that's what I live by every day. I'm an animal.
All right. Well, I'm glad I'm nice to you. I want to open it up to the group here. Does anybody have a question for Sierra? Right up here, Martin.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask how much help was like the mentors or people you connected with? Because I feel like that's something I also try to get the entrepreneurship club members to come to these events and maybe meet someone that can help them like reach their entrepreneurship goals. So how can a student start to establish like their network and how important it is? Or yeah, basically.
If everybody didn't hear it, he's asking how helpful is mentorship and how do you get mentors, I think.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, mentorship is everything. I don't believe anybody could build a business, a successful business by themselves. So if you don't have a mentor, get one today. How would I approach getting a mentor? Just reach out to them. What I did when I was around 21, 22 is I sat down with myself and thought about where I wanted to be in like 5 to 10 years. And then I went on LinkedIn and started looking for people that kind of fit a similar profile. And I started reaching out to people then. And also just always be on the lookout too, like bosses could be potential mentors, like Colette, for instance. She's probably one of the most important people in my life, and has really, I would say she shaped me in terms of who I was early on in my career. So just always be on the lookout, reach out to anybody that might align with what you want to do or who you want to be. And yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out, I would say. Because a lot of people like kind of put that barrier up and don't want to reach out, but there's no harm in reaching out.
Great. Yes, Mr. West End Association.
How you guys doing? Question, I know a lot of entrepreneurs feel a lot of fear with asking for help. Could you kind of walk us through the process of how you had to prepare yourself to come to RevTech Ventures and get the financial help you needed to get your business off the ground?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I genuinely just had so much confidence in what I was doing and what I was working on that I had no other choice but to go and fly out to Dallas and pitch to David. Like I can't really speak on like the fear front because I don't know if I've ever experienced that with Shelfleet anyway, but I would say just do something that you really believe in, and I think in doing so you're able to kind of push through that fear.
Oh, that's great feedback. Thanks for the question. Yes, sir.
So, being a person that's from Chicago too, could you agree that it's extremely influential? Chicago.
The question how is Chicago extremely influential?
No, so that wasn't originally my question. So being another person from
Yeah. Um, yeah, so stay tuned for our launch in the next month. Our current website's terrible. But you're absolutely right. So we're actually working with a manufacturer slash brand based in Mexico. And they design jewelry, and they work with local artisans to design just, again, different jewelry and homeware, I guess. But they're utilizing us as a way for like cross-border launches, and I think that could also apply to like different brands in different states as well. Does that answer your question?
So yes, a great
Yeah.
avenue for designers to get into market. Yes, Yara in the back.
Yeah, I saw that you got your bachelor's in art and philosophy at Stanford University. How did your education exactly prepare you for like the workforce? Because I saw you work at different brand management companies, but I don't really see how that really translates to that. So how did that help prepare you for the workforce? And what advice would you give us, fellow college students who really don't have an idea of what we're doing, and to be where you are today? Because that's what I'm trying to come off the bat.
Yes, your art and philosophy degree, Sierra. How has it been helpful?
Yeah, so I studied philosophy, much to my parents' dismay. But what I would say is philosophy has helped me unearth creative solutions to very complex issues. I don't know if any of y'all have taken any philosophy classes. They're not easy. Yeah, so they really make you think, right? That's my best answer for you.
Yeah, but you look at a lot of successful entrepreneurs and business people, you'd be amazed at the variety of degrees they have, or no degrees. It's really that stimulation of your thinking. Anything that can help you think, and ideally think outside the box, is helpful. Yes, back here in the back.
Oh, my time at McDonald's?
How was her time at McDonald's?
Yeah, because my experience at working at McDonald's was horrible.
All right, his experience at McDonald's was horrible. How was yours?
What did you do at McDonald's?
I was the grill.
Okay.
The grill and fries. Then they put me at the back at the drive-through cashier.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It wasn't like the best job, but I learned a lot. I was 16. Like I said before, I started out making fries, did that for probably half a year. Woke up literally every day during the summer at like 5 a.m. to get to the restaurant by like 5:30. And I mean, it wasn't a glamorous job at all. But did I learn a lot? Yeah.
Builds character.
Exactly. I learned a lot. And I would actually recommend everybody to work a service industry job 100%.
I just have to interject. I had a flashback memory. I had my college 4-year degree, and I just thought I was set for life, and what company is going to be lucky enough to hire me. And after getting turned down by a couple places, my job wound up being at Sister's Chicken and Biscuit, and I was the one that took the chicken out of the freezer and like pulled the fat off. So, and then also I got to go out it was up north, and I got to go out in the freezing cold and wash the windows and clean off the sidewalks. And the reason I think it was great is because it was humbling. I needed some humility, and I got it during that few months. So, yes, back here in the Dallas College shirt. All right, I'm going to try to repeat it back. You can help me, Sarah, and I'm doing it so that it picks up for the camera and also for you that couldn't hear. But he started an e-commerce business, and he's asking what keeps you going, because it's really hard to get a new idea brought into reality, right?
Yeah. So I think, firstly, like finding support, so surrounding yourself with people who support you is super important. But what keeps me motivated is like the mission and the vision for the company. I'm not sure if you've taken the time to think about like the vision of like where you want to head with your e-com store, but I think creating a vision that you truly believe in is absolutely necessary at this stage, and you're going to have your ups and downs. I mean, some weeks are better than others, and it can be discouraging, but I would say like find yourself a mentor, surround yourself with like friends who support you, maybe other entrepreneurs. I think there's a pretty good like entrepreneur network here in Dallas, so I would tap into that, go to dinners, network with as many people as possible, and like create a greater vision for yourself.
That's great. We got one more here.
So speaking on networks, I understand that the Micromarket company that you're working on, as well as helping Uber Eats launch out there in Austin, that required a lot of networking. Required you to know a lot of people. How did you go about building your network?
Questions, how did she go about building her network?
I'm actually pretty introverted, so networking, yeah, I am. I find networking incredibly uncomfortable, and even this to a certain extent is incredibly uncomfortable for me, but I would say just like put yourself out there. What I would do anyway is I just research online, like different networks here in Dallas, for instance. Like I know there's probably so many different like founders networks that are free, and a lot of them like host like dinners and like different like events. So I mean that's basically what I did. I just got into, like when I moved back to Austin, looked on Google, literally tapped myself into all of these different networks and spoke to as many people as possible, no matter how uncomfortable I was. And also the other piece of advice is every single time I've like not wanted to go to a networking event and I force myself to go, I've always found like the best like people. I've never regretted it. So just push yourself to go if you're an introvert like me.
All right, got a question over on this side of the room.
What sort of things were you involved in while you were in college, like extracurricular activities, and what would you suggest us as students be involved with our college trip?
What were your extracurricular activities? Not partying, I hope.
You know
It's
what?
okay. No judgment.
I wish I was more involved in college. I really do. I was kind of a degenerate in college. But what I tell my little sister is, and she's in college right now, she goes to Texas State. I tell her, find a mentor. That's like my number one piece of advice for like anybody. Find a mentor, do the exercise that I told you guys about before, make a vision for yourself, find somebody who aligns with that vision, talk to that person, and if they ignore you, like have a list of like 10 other people that like you want to reach out to. So that's number one. I would also get experience, even if that means joining a company for free or with very little pay, whatever it is. Like I think experience is far more valuable than money if you can do that. And then I guess the third one would be just to network and talk to as many people as possible and run experiments too. So if you have an idea, just do it. Like who cares? Just do it.
I'm going to take this as an action item to get with you, Martin and Yareth, and we'll tap our network at RevTech and see what are some of the good networking opportunities for students in Dallas. How about that?
Yeah.
And then we can get a list together for the Entrepreneur Club. Sound good? All right, that should be an easy deliverable. There's a ton of networking activities, many of them involving free food. Any other one more question, then we need to wrap.
So, being where you are now on your path, is there anything that you would change that you think that would help you reach the success quicker? Like anything you should have done differently, maybe, or just in general different?
Yes, now that we've walked through your life story, starting at Chicago all the way to here in downtown Dallas, is there anything you would change, knowing what you know now?
Or like any like tips, or kind of like things that you would do to beat out to get where you are?
I would take more risks. I am naturally, I come up with probably like a million ideas a day. I wish when I was in my earlier 20s, I just wish I did it. I wish I took more risks. I naturally already take a lot of risks anyway, but I wish I kind of just went 100% in with everything. So I'd say, not that that's a regret, but I wish I had done that. And I wish I wasn't so afraid either, because, you know, my peers at like 21, 22 years old were, you know, out partying, drinking, and I wasn't so much interested in that. I was interested in my own stuff, whether it was business or hobbies or whatever, but I just wish I went full force into everything I thought of.
That's great feedback. Well, thanks everybody very much for attending today. Please come back next month. Next month we're going to have Renee Larave, a longtime entrepreneur friend of mine here in Dallas who's built 5 or 6 successful software companies. You're going to love Renee. He's got a very interesting story. And please make sure and meet my colleague Lindsay in the back, Lindsay Lightman, who helped put the event together. Lindsay, and also Stuart Matthews here on the video and audio controls, and me and Sierra, of course, will be around. And so please stay and network some. Thank you all very much.